round out your field. So this is our formation lap for Master VLR, brought to you by Radical Northwest. And we have a green flag going into turn 1. Michael Ting's on the inside. Looks like we have Fred Clark a little bit over the curve. Looks like all of our drivers have made it through nice and clean. So it looks like we have Gorgeous George going to the inside, coming up the hill there, going past the start and finish line. So currently we have, oh, it looks like Dan Jones goes to the inside of Michael Ting. So exiting Kramer, Dan Jones made the pass on Michael Ting. That shuffles Mike back to second. Fred Clark still is in third. Fourth, we're going to have Dan Rivera. Once again, this is Master VLR. 100cc, 2-stroke air-cooled engines, single speed. There's your race leader, Dan Jones. So we're going to keep an eye on the lap times of Daniel Jones and Michael Ting. That last time by, Daniel Jones only had a 0.2 of a second gap, but let's see if he's able to stretch it out a little bit. So here they come out of tic-tac-toe, coming up the hill, going into turn, our old turn 1, because they are running reverse right now. Oh, we have a driver dropping some wheels off the track. That allows Gorgeous George to drop in underneath. I believe that was Dan Rivera. So Dan Rivera is looking to get back around Gorgeous George. So we have Gorgeous George and Uncle Dan battling it out right now. And then sitting in 6th, we have Scott Vermanik. Fred Clark is still sitting in that number 3 spot. Second place, Michael Ting. And your race leader, Daniel Jones. So it looks like we're going to have a challenge for third here. It looks like Gorgeous George is going to challenge for that number 3 spot with Fred Clark. There's Fred Clark right there. There goes Gorgeous George to the inside. Does Fred Clark be able to come back and counter? Georgius Giorgio takes over that 3rd spot. Here comes Uncle Dan to the inside of Fred Clark. As they go through the left-hand maker. So Dan Rivera is trying to get around Fred Clark. Let's see how Scott Vermanik decides to approach this little battle here. So Gorgeous George is pulling away from that battle for 4th. So there's Fred Clark with that red and blue helmet right there, cart number 715. He's currently hanging on to that number 4 spot. So right now we're watching the battle between Fred Clark and Dan Rivera. So that last time around, Gorgeous George goes purple. He's sitting in that third spot. He just went purple with the 54.190. So let's see if Gorgeous George is going to track down second place Michael Ting. Meanwhile, Daniel Jones, his lead's increased to about a half a second. So let's see if Gorgeous George works with Michael Ting to close the gap on race leader Daniel Jones. Or is he the fastest guy on the track? He's going to get around Michael and then go after the race leader. So we'll find out here in a couple more corners. Right there we have the battle still for fourth between Fred Clark, Dan Rivera, and Scott Bermanek. And here's the battle for second between Michael Ting and Gorgeous George. Looks like Michael Ting and Gorgeous George both get through tic-tac-toe fairly well. I'm trying to look on the track to see where there might be an advantage for either of those drivers. Oh, there goes Gorgeous George to the inside. There's the advantage. Gorgeous George takes over that number 2 spot. Now he was purple on that last lap, so let's see if he has enough speed to go chase down Dan Jones. And further back, we have a pass for fourth, so it looks like Dan Rivera has gotten around Fred Clark. So here comes our race leader, Dan Jones, up the hill, followed by Gorgeous George. Running in third is Michael Ting. And then further back, we have Dan Rivera in fourth, Fred Clark in fifth. Scott Bermanek is running in sixth. So once again, this is Master VLR racing action brought to you by Radical Northwest. Radical Northwest is also based out of the Sonoma racetrack. These opening laps of this main event for Master VLR, there was racing action for first and second. Then it turned into second and third. And then the whole race, the battle between Dan Rivera, Fred Clark, and Scott Bermanek for fourth. But right now it looks like everyone's sitting comfortable. Not saying they're relaxed and taking it easy, but no clear fight for a position right now. Next up will be our Briggs 206. Fast Briggs 206 will be next up. So here's our race leader, Daniel Jones. Last lap, he had a 1 second lead over second place Gorgeous George. Now he has 1.8 seconds. Gap on track looks a lot different than my timing is saying there. That looks a lot closer than 1.8 seconds. I could be a little bit off though. Let's see here. There's your race leader, Daniel Jones, running aboard that CRG product. And then Gorgeous George is running in second on an OTK product. Then we have Michael Ting running in third on the GFC product. Back on track, we have Daniel Jones. And then we have Gorgeous George running in second and Michael Ting running in third. And again, this is Master VLR. All of our drivers today will run 15 laps. Our Masters have 3 laps to go. 3 laps to go here at Master VLR. Up next will be the Briggs 206 races. Okay, so the last time by, Gorgeous George is only a half a second behind Daniel Jones. To me, that makes a lot more sense. So let's see if we can make something happen here. So they're going to go through tic-tac-toe coming up the hill. Then they're going to enter reverse turn 1. Let's see, Dan Jones is now 7/10 ahead of Gorgeous George. You know, it looks like Dan Jones is very aware of his position, and he's just moderating that gap. Because Gorgeous George is closing the gap, gets on his bumper, then Dan Jones lays a lap down and puts a cushion between the two of them again. So we're going to have 2 laps to go, 2 laps to go right now on screen. That's Fred Clark being chased down by Scott Permanek. And then there's Gorgeous George going through tic-tac-toe, trying to catch up to Dan Jones coming up the hill. Then right behind that is Michael Ting. So white flag lap for Daniel Jones, Gorgeous George, Michael Ting, Dan Rivera, Fred Clark, Scott Permanek, Sherry Camilla, Kyle Armstrong, Kieran James, and rounding out your top 10, Stefan Gaudreau. So our top 3 are pretty well spread out right now. Gorgeous George just went purple, but he's a 1.5 seconds behind race leader Daniel Jones. So Daniel Jones goes through tic-tac-toe for the last time. This race weekend, he's heading up the hill, entering into reverse turn 1. And Dan Jones is going to take the checkered flag, followed by Gorgeous George, Michael Ting, Dan Rivera, Fred Clark, Scott Permanek. And next up, we will have our Briggs 206 racers.